Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us. Another Stewardship of Wealth Empowerment session. We have a great panel here today, and we're going to be speaking about different financial tips and things that we've learned for our own personal success, things that we kind of implemented and learned along the years. And once again, we have a great, broad, diverse panel. I'll go ahead and introduce everyone and give them an opportunity to just share a few words of introduction. I'll start with our founder, Mr. Michael J. Vance Sr. It's where I get my name from, in case anyone is unaware. But Dad, Mr. Vance, how should I refer to you?
All of the above.
Welcome everyone.
Yeah, all of the above. I want to thank the Lord for being here today. It's really an honor to be able to share this ministry, stewardshipofwealth.com. And we've been doing this for a while. We started in 2004. Patricia Hughes and I and our Honey Bats and Associates wanted to find a way that we can help young professionals specifically make wise decisions with their money. And so we decided to come together and start this ministry doing workshops in our community. And then as we begin to grow, as social media began to take prevalence into the marketplace, we started to use social media as a platform to share this message. And so far, we've been able to touch a lot of lives over the years, since 2004. So we've touched a lot of lives, 20 years of doing this. Again, I want to thank my panel again for this opportunity for sharing. And again, it's really an honor just to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'll allow my mother, Mrs. Ardella Vance, to say a few words of introduction as well.
Well, I am Ardella Vance, Mrs. Michael Vance, mother of Michael Vance Jr. And I happen to be here because I am related to the two of them. I do the best that I can. I handle a lot of our finances, the two of us together. And so I will be sharing some things that I know, but basically I'm here for for the ride and support and encouragement.
Yeah, she's a great helpmate, no doubt. Yeah, great helpmate.
And a great mother. I'll throw that in there too. Yeah, wonderful example. Mrs. Patricia Hughes, would you please introduce yourself as well?
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here again. And like Michael said, we start seeing a lot of clients that were starting businesses and purchasing homes and vehicles. And we realized that there was a need in our community for some guidance when it came to saving and teaching them, basically sharing with them knowledge that we had gained over the years. And so being able to share with the community was something that we always desired. And going into community events and especially into our churches, and not necessarily just one church, but any church that, wishes us to come. We're always willing to speak and share. And it has been a wonderful ministry for us. We built our book of business with this, as well as, sharing with the community and especially making young people and new business owners aware of options that they have to save money and to continue to grow their businesses. So this has been a great experience for us, and we hope to be able to continue for years to come.
Great. Thank you so much. And Miss LaTanya Powers, will you introduce yourself and say some words of welcome to our guests? Yes.
Just hello to everyone watching. Hello to the panelists, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity and the invitation, to be a part of this discussion. I don't work with Hunley and Bats, but I met Michael and Miss Ardella through another, channel, and we all just have the same vision, the same um, burden for our community, in the financial education, financial literacy of people who look like us, just making sure that we can share the experiences that we have to help, to better our community and to provide better financial opportunities, for people of color. Mhm.
And finally, Mr. Ray Allister, go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I have known Mr. Vance since 2013 when God came and got me and told me to get my life together. And he was one of the first people I met when I got back into the church. And my wife and I just got married and needed a place to figure out how to move an overnight. So they were doing Life University. He was heading up the financial piece element. And we were walking through that hallway and said, well, I think we need that. So that's how I first got in there and met him. And he's been a mentor of mine since, and really just poured into my life, filled me with a lot of good advice and just always checked in on my dreams, what God's doing in my life. And so I'm just here to hopefully be able to share a little bit of my journey and to, just put in however I can.
Right, awesome. Well, once again, you've heard a little bit about each of the different panelists that are here today. I'm going to be moderating. Maybe I'll throw in a few, tips and things along the way, but I'm here to kind of allow them to really spread and share their wisdom. And so with that, I wanted to know if anyone just has like a burning, just like, listen, top thing. You can't like number one takeaway. If someone's just joining in or they start, maybe they're not going to make it the whole way through. Don't save it to the end. What's like the number one thing that you feel like someone needs to hear? I don't know if there's someone with a burning topic that they want to address, but if someone has that, I want to give that first opportunity to right now.
Wow.
Anyone has something?
One of the things that
That's great.
one of the things that I see a lot of is young people buying cars, and they select a car first thing, and then they realize, oh, I can't get the car off the lot without insurance. Well, they have not sat down and did a budget of, this is the car I want and this is how much I'm going to pay for it. And then the second thing is, oh, I got to have insurance. Sometimes when they get ready to when they buy the car, then they realize, oh my God, I can't afford this because the insurance is higher than the car payment. And so one of the things that we try to encourage is sit down and do step by step. And then that you can either buy the car or you can't buy the car, because when you get ready to get off that lot, you've got to have the insurance. And today, the premiums are so high in some instances based on, of course, their age, their driving record, their demographics, that they can't afford the car. And so one of the things that we also encourage is when you're really looking at your first car, try to save money and then start paying what you would pay for the car, maybe for the next 6 months. Put that into your savings, and then that you can afford that car and the insurance. Then proceed.
I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
That's an excellent thing to think about. Yes, that's perfect. Mom, I know you had stepped in there, so
Yes.
I'm going to give you a chance.
So I wanted to make sure that I got in my one little tidbit before anybody took it away from me. So what I wanted to say is to make saving a priority. And my dad used to say that you should never spend all the money that you make. Make sure that you always save some. And one of the things that I realized as we were going through financial peace, that we had started making savings a priority. And one of the things that they had mentioned were the fact that you could have several different kinds of savings. You could have a savings for a trip. You could have savings for this. You could have, but when we first started out, there was one savings. Everything went into that one,
Yeah.
and whatever needed to come out, it came out of that one little pot. The Lord has blessed us. Not so much that we are making a whole lot more than what we used to, but we have less expenses. Our children are taking care of themselves and they are out of the house. Your dad says we have the best kind of children in the world. They are grown and gone. Uh, uh, and he said we got a pay raise as a result of the fact that you all are gone. That's one of the things. And the other thing is that our house is paid for. So, we don't have that expense anymore. Our cars are paid for, so we don't have that expense. One of the things that I want to share with other people, if you're in a situation like us and you feel like because you've got a little bit more money and you've got a few less expenses, that means you can spend more. Well, it should also mean you can save more. There's always going to be a reason to save. Even if your house is paid for, there are repairs that need to be done. Even if your car is paid for, there are repairs on the car. And pretty soon, if you drive old cars like we do, they're going to need to be replaced. So there's still always a reason to save. The older you get, your health you may need to spend more on your health. So my suggestion is that if you make more or you feel like you make more, don't just spend more, but save more.
Yes.
That's
Love that. I would just add to all of those that none of this happens without a plan. I think that's one of the first things that we really need to consider when we're using our money is how we're going to do that. I know when we first started that process, you just kind of realize how much money slips through your fingers when you don't have a plan, when you're just kind of going from day to day, buying a little here, spending a little there, dropping a little bit of this, a little that, and I know in my practice, what I always hear from people is, I don't feel like I made that much money. Yeah, well, you did. The problem is that you spent either most of it or more than what you earned. And that mostly happens because there's no actual plan about how to spend. So, like you said, part of that plan should be those necessities with your housing and your utilities and your food and things like that. Part of that plan does include, like she said, the savings, whether it's for your emergency fund or for your vacation or car, or whatever it is. But all of those things need to be a part of the plan. And that's how you find financial success, is by planning for it.
And I think just to kind of follow up on a number of those points, one of the things, if you're making a plan, you're talking about paying yourself, be honest with yourself. Like, you're not going to, a lot of people have like lofty ambitions about what they're going to do. And yes, I'm going to do, it's like, be honest. Like, maybe you have a problem with how you spend, or you're going to spend too much in this area, and being honest with yourself. I'm going to put my wife out there because she's not here to defend herself, and I'm not going to defend myself. My wife loves Amazon. I think we single-handedly keep it open here in Houston. And because we know that about ourselves, my wife knows if she sees money in the account, she knows, well, I could go spend Amazon. So we have a number of different accounts that we have. Because if she sees money in our regular checking account, she's like, oh, there's money available. Let me see what's on Amazon. But money comes in, we're moving it to different accounts. We have a number of different savings accounts, a number of different just sort of like holding this is for this. And that way we sort of keep money that's for our day-to-day either expenses, where you can go to the store, get gas or things like that in our checking account that we use. And we're not, we have a sort of a set amount of money that's going to these other places. And so that's part of like paying ourselves first, in terms of like savings, and we also have investment and things like that. But also trying, Amazon's gonna have to work harder for our money this month. But that's a part of us is being honest, because you were like, we were spending, too much money on Amazon, and now it's sort of, we have an amount, and we have an alert if we go above how much we're supposed to spend. But with us, that was something that we talked about. Hey, we need to do better with this. Okay, what can we do? And that was moving this money here or doing this. And so having an honest conversation with yourself, with your spouse, with your partner, so that person, who's going to, be able to help you navigate what you need to do. But it does require you to have some honesty about the situation, right? If you know that you're not good at this, maybe it's asking someone for help. Say, hey, can you help me figure out what I need to do better? And so, but there has to be a level of honesty. And I think if you don't have that, then you're not going to really tackle, if you're having issues, to really tackle those problems, right? And so I would say that's the first thing, is like, be honest with yourself. What are your struggles? What are the things that you have problems with, that you and figure out a practical way in order to help address those. So that's my big thing, is be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself.
So it sounds like to me that you not only had the honesty, but then, like Latanya said, you also made a plan, a realistic plan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely.
I think for me, I've had the privilege of having a wife that does a lot of the finances, and so my claim to fame is I work, and I fork over the checks, and so, but we have a very similar approach to what you do, Michael Vance Jr. Do they call you Mikey, or just Junior? Like, is there a nickname? Just
Michael James. There's
Michael James.
It's Michael James. Generally, like from the parents.
Gotcha. But so we have a very similar approach with making sure everything goes into a certain pot. But I almost started off by saying, for our demographic, but it really applies to everybody, is making sure that you're not paying attention to what others are doing more than what you can do. And I think, social media is such a big platform. Watching the highlights of other people, seeing what other people are doing, you can have that fear of missing out, or that feeling that you need to be involved in that, or I want to do that too, and that looks like fun. And those are the things that sometimes will put you kind of out of place. And if you can save for it, that's fine. But if you are going to go on vacation and come back to a bigger nightmare than than when you left, you have to really consider those things. So saving, even in itself, it's one thing. It's great to be able to save, but also, what are you saving for? Are your priorities right with what what do you really need? What are your needs? What things you need to check off? And so I know that was big for us, just making sure that we can really hunker down and live out the experience from the starting point that you're living. And so I know for our relationship, that coming to that agreement was really big, because it kind of freed us, and like, we got to live our experience. We got to go from where we are, not where anyone else is. This is our situation, and we got to live it based on where we are.
I see you sitting there in the back, Dad. Everyone else has spoken now, so this means that you have to chime in at this point.
I think the words that you were saying about being honest,
and if you could talk directly into the mic a little bit more. I know you're trying to do your Barry White, but you got to come in close.
So the ideal of being honest is can you hear me okay right now?
Sure.
This idea of being honest with yourself really resonated with me, because as you said that, in my mind, I was like, man, my son just really popping my bubble over here, because he's speaking directly to me. I hope he don't ask me to say something, and then here you go. Would you say something specifically? And so my thing is, I am a man of faith. However, I no longer believe that if you name it or claim it, it's yours. All you need is a positive attitude. If you sow a seed, you're going to prosper. That's how I was living for a long time. And, there's reasons why your finances are messed up. There's reasons for me. And to be honest, a lot of those reasons are, we make bad financial decisions. We purchase things on impulse.
Yeah.
We spend money on things we can't afford. We haven't learned to be savers. We don't trust God to do what he said he's going to do. So if you ask me to be honest, one of the things that I have learned is God gave me a Proverbs 31 woman, and I'm trying to take full, total advantage of her gifts and abilities. And one thing I learned, and I'm gonna throw some game on young brothers. If you got a Proverbs 31 woman, don't mess around. You try to listen to her, pay attention to her.
Yeah.
Listen, God put you together for a reason. So I would like to say that being honest, the more that I lean on my wife, everything that I allow my wife to touch in my life turns to gold. It's when I try to go out there and do it on my own. And so it's a reason why we're together. So I would encourage married couples to sit down together and have shared goals. I mean, these are things you both shared budget. We both agree. Not I agree on, yeah, maybe I do, but both of you coming together and saying, we're going to do this together. And that has been where we win. Ardella and I win when we both come together and we're honest and we say we're going to do this together. So that would be my remarks, Michael. Don't ask me to again. Please,
why are you on the stream? Why are you on the stream if you don't want to be asked any questions? Okay, drop off and observe then. No, I reserve the right to call you out if I have to.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of people out on social media. They're talking a lot of stuff they ain't doing. They're just telling you stuff and they ain't doing it. I know this. I think I could do that too. I could be one of those people. But you just called me out. You was like, no, you can't be that. Nah. And so
how was it?
There's a lot of people out there, they're telling you to do this or that, but they're not doing it. And so that's all I'm saying. And it's easy to do that. It's easy to say, do this and do that, handle this, handle that, spend here, spend there, but you're not doing it. So that's all I'm saying. So
yeah. So when you touched on something that when you initially started talking, you talked about although you're a man of faith, you said you no longer believe in this name it and claim it, this sow a seed and this is going to happen, right? It's not just this, I'm just going to do these things and God is going to bless, absent of a plan, absent of making wise financial decisions, right? And so I wonder from the panel if, and I know Ms. Hughes, you kind of touched on the idea of people buying cars and not considering the cost of those. Mm-hmm. There's other just financial situations that you've seen that people get tripped up on or don't think about the impact or the implications of those. I know, Dad, you and I have had conversations, and I've had these with some of my friends about life insurance, right? Mm-hmm. As men, as husbands, we have wives or dependents, children. The idea of having life insurance in case you pass away, if you are the main breadwinner, mm-hmm. right, and your family is sort of relying on your income, if you pass away, what's going to happen? How is your family going to survive? And that's something that, you and I have talked about, and making sure that is squared away for my family. And I've talked with some of my friends, and one of my friends, when I told him, he was like, I don't know, man, that seems like a money pit. And it's like, it's insurance, right? It's not, you're hoping you don't have to use it, but you need it in case it's there. And some people, if they don't see the practical benefit, what am I getting from this every month? Like, I just threw this money away, however much it is. And it's not that much, right? But I just threw this money away. I could have, bought another meal from, my favorite, like Chick-fil-A, everybody go Starbucks. I don't drink coffee, but Chick-fil-A will get me. So that's my go-to. It's like that, the cost of what it might take for you to, if you go to Chick-fil-A, a couple of times a month can really, set your family up well in case something were to happen to you. And thinking about what might happen if you don't have that. And, so that's something that I try to make sure my friends, are making sure that they have. that I talk with them. That way I can funnel them to you if I need to, Dad, trying to help. But just like, are there other things that you've seen people, and this is again for anyone in the panel, where there's some like either mistakes or some maybe faulty assumptions that people make, that's like, hey, we've got to fine tune this or change our thinking about a particular area. Does anyone have any of those?
I would say that retirement falls almost in the same line as the life insurance thing. I don't know how in the human mind, when we're younger, we don't really consider that one day you're not going to be as young, and then what we don't realize also is how quickly those years pass, and so, like you said, as part of the saving strategy, we really do need to save for when either you can't or don't want to, work at all or as hard, whatever the case may be. And the only way that you can do that, of course, again, is having retirement savings as part of your plan. There's a lot of talk, even now with this most recent election, but there's always talk about what happens to Social Security. Will Social Security be available at this time or at that time or at whatever time? And the truth is, even if Social Security remains available, Social Security alone is not enough to sustain anybody. I wanted to say most people, but from what I've seen, not really anybody, so having that as your sole source of income in your retirement years, I mean, it just doesn't leave for what I would consider maybe a fulfilling time during those years, because you'll always be strapped for cash, and then you're at the mercy of whatever the government's going to do. And we can see how unpredictable that can be. So again, retirement savings, saving for you, the you that you don't even know yet, is as important as anything else, as eating now. You can't get there later if you don't eat now. And you certainly don't want to get there later and not be able to eat then. So so definitely retirement savings is something that we really, really, I think people miss the mark on, that is very important.
Yeah. And I mean, and to that point, there are tools out there in terms of like retirement calculators. You can get a sense of like, okay, how much would I need at retirement? And then start from your age, how much do I need to be saving to get to that point, right? You can play around with those amounts, and get a sense of what that looks like and start putting it away instead of, I'm going to rely on Social Security. Because you could go in there and look and see, okay, this is how much Social Security is going to give me. And it's going to be a very small amount. And you're going to say, like, what am I going to pay with that? If you look at what your current bills are, and you think about, what you have to pay for, hopefully by the time you get to retirement, you may have hopefully paid off a house. But if you haven't, or if you're renting or something, that's going to take up a large portion of your, the income that you would have coming in. And thinking about, okay, how much money would I need? Okay, and then how much is this giving me? Okay, I need this amount of money, and work backwards, and see how much it is that you're going to need and what you need to start saving in order to get there. So use those resources to help you set those financial goals. But it is definitely something that, we need to be thinking about. And the earlier you start, the more time you have, the less you might have to put in at that point. At this point, you have 30, 40, 50 years to get to that point, as opposed to, waiting till you're 55 or 60 and you're like, oh, what's happening in 5-10 years? So that's important. Someone else?
As you said, the years go by so quickly. One of the things that we've observed, though, is that in our community, so many people were held back when it comes to being able to make a standard of living wage. And now, with the economy the way it is, and with housing the way it is, you really see a lot of people suffering. And when you get these notices in the mail, and so many people get them, I'll buy your house. Okay, if you buy my house, where am I going to live? And that is a bag of tricks, I would say, because it's like, keep your house. This is your house. If you sell your home and try to get another one, you're going to be in trouble. because, the reality is you can afford the home that you have now. But if you sell that home and try to get something else, you may end up paying double the amount that the expenses of, having your own home that is your home, and then going out and trying to have a new mortgage. And we see a few people in their older age doing that. And it's like, why would they why would they do that? Why would you sell your home that it's yours? And now you're going to look at this other home, and it's like the expense is just astronomical. In our community, the housing market has just skyrocketed. Renters fees are anywhere from $1,500 or more a month. And even the senior citizen programs, where senior citizens are in complexes that offer them rental property, many of our people cannot afford it because they had low wages from the time they started working. And, we realized that a lot of things were done to our forefathers, and they were not able to earn a decent living. And now it's like they are in the poorhouse. They had no savings. They were barely making it when they were working. And then for Social Security to come along and say, oh, well, this is what you're going to make, and it's less than $1,000 a month. Some of them are only making $700-800 a month. And the rent that they would have to pay is 1/3 of that, even in the senior housing. And so, you really have some complications there when it comes to our senior citizens and what we're seeing in the community.
I wanted to add to that. I think that not only do you younger people need to think about yourselves, but if you have any older people that you are concerned, parents or whatever that you might be concerned about, check on them, because what she said is true. And what happens is that for a lot of older people who haven't really made anything, if somebody tells you that they're going to give you $50,000 for your house, $50,000 sounds like $1 million. And you think it's going to go a lot further than what it actually will. Because what's happening with you is that your house, like she said, you were barely making it when you were working. Now that your income is going down, your house is going down. Everything else is going down. Your health is going down. And there are so many things that are happening all at once. It's like you're drowning and you're reaching up for some kind of help, some kind of lifeline. And here this call comes in, or this card comes in, or something comes in the mail and says, we've got you. And it's cash, as is. You don't have to do anything to your house. We will give you a great deal. It's not true, but they say it all the time. We are getting them in the mail all the time. We would love to have your house. We've got text. They're sending us text messages. They're sending us postcards in the mail. They're sending us all, those kind of things. And I know my neighbors next door to us, they said the same thing, but they were saying, well, if we sell you your house, where are we going to move? How are we going to do it? And so they were holding out, but then their health starts failing and everything else is going down. And so eventually it adds up. And a lot of your seniors are getting caught up in the fact that, hey, this is about the best deal I thought I could get, because I'm not making it otherwise. So let me take the $40,000-50,000 that they said they're going to give me. I only paid $20,000 for my house anyway, or $30,000. I'm making, I'm making it. It sounds good. It sounds good, but in reality, it is not. And so come alongside some of the seniors who might be struggling. Some of them might even have dementia. There's all kinds of things that are going on. And A lot of them are not used to reaching out and asking for help, but they need the help. And so if you see somebody in your family that you know could help, that could use the help, try to help them as soon as you can, because if not, they will fall prey to what's going on just like everybody else.
Right.
Okay. Did anyone else have any other they wanted to share there?
Yeah,
Go
for
ahead,
me,
Ray.
mine kind of comes on the other side of the spectrum, and it's in more so education. Can I say this enough? Securing your child's pathway to become educated without going into debt is probably one of the best things you could do for them. And so I've had so many instances, for a long time I worked in primarily getting kids ready for college, and college planning for families. And most of my clientele were affluent members of the Huntsville community. And they had 529s, they had saving accounts, and they were still investing in their kids' test prep and college prep. And so a kid gets a $40,000 scholarship to go to Alabama or Auburn, or I had one kid that ended up in Memphis, at Rhodes, and it was $34,000 a year that he got in scholarship, right? And he came out, with a job from Raymond James, no debt, even though they did some saving. And you start life with a net positive. So instead of having to take that, $1,000 a month to repay a loan, you can invest that now, right? And so we all know the power of interest. It works for you or works against you. It's you're on one side of the equation, And so instead of taking a long period of time, can you imagine if I could invest $80,000 by the time I'm 24, what that's going to be when I'm 55, right? So something that we often miss, and when I talk to kids, anytime I'm trying to encourage them to take their education more seriously, I actually roll out that math. I sit down with parents and I talk about that, because that number is life-changing for their families. It's something that puts you in a completely different space where you are not anchored, or you don't have this anchor around your ankle that's dragging you down all the time. And it's not something that we do. I remember one of the first events that I did with Mr. Vance, and Miss Patricia was there, and I shared this concept, with the mom, and I was like, people spend more money per month on shoes than affluent families spent on my prep. And their kids got tons of money from that. Some families invested $2,000, $5,000 over a 2-year period and got a return of $40,000 plus. We missed that opportunity over and over and over again. And so for families that have kids, now, I started as early as 6th grade, 7th grade. I tell people it's never too early for kids to start that journey, because time flies by quickly. It's the same thing, right? Where you can't take it for granted because it does go by so fast. The kids that 6, 7 years ago were babies to me, they're all graduated. They're in their senior year now. And I'm shaking my head like, how in the world are you a senior? How are you graduating? What in the world is going on? You're driving? Like, what the world are you doing? Right? It goes by so fast. So on the other end of the spectrum, really setting up the next generation to start their lives off without enormous amounts of debt is something that we need to do more for our community, to break generational, poverty.
I have a question. I can see that being available if you're talking to affluent people, families. What do you do if they don't have all the money, or is there something out there for those who are not quite affluent?
Yes, yeah, there are a lot of services, and something that's really difficult is that, and I wish someone would have shared this with me when I was a kid, when I was younger. Um, I missed that train, sadly. But there are ways for you to find resources, and you know, um, Black and brown people forever have had to come up the rough side of the mountain on this topic, right? Where you don't have the same amount of opportunities. You don't have the road's not going to be paved for you. You have to trailblaze a little bit more. But man, if you're not studying 3-4 hours a week on resources like Khan Academy, there are a ton of resources. You just got to put in the time, right? And you might not have someone to hold your hand through it, or you might need to find somebody that will, or find a program like we in Huntsville, as a challenge, what God has drugged me into. We are our nonprofit. We have done that in the past. We've done community classes, and we're trying to get that going again. That's getting enrichment for our kids, for the families that can't afford. But there are other programs that do that too. We're not the only ones. And so it's doing the research. It's finding out if there are any, programs in your area. And, it varies, right? Because of course, the person who can make the most money might not be giving that service away. They're going to cater to the affluent community, but our kids have to learn too that they have to push through, that being on the game or working at Chick-fil-A or working at Target, which sometimes is necessary, but you're making, $10, $12, $15 an hour, and the person studying is making $200, $300 an hour, because when that scholarship hits and you get $40,000 for studying 100 hours, which is 2 hours a week for a year, that pays you. But the challenge that our kids have, again, it goes back to the same concept of like keeping up, right? So they want to get the shoes, they want to be, and those things aren't wrong. It's not wrong to have pocket change, but they're giving up a really big deal, a really big chunk of change just to have a little bit of money in their pocket. So just educating our students on the importance of studying, the importance of doing the repetition, having a coach that can lead you through it does make it easier. But if they put in the time, if they're watching videos, if they're using the free resources, if they're just committed to it, they will grow and they'll get that money.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned earlier about life insurance, and what I'm seeing sometimes in our community, especially the affluent communities, you might have young professionals that have children, especially Black boys, and they're afraid. They're getting insurance, life insurance on their teenage sons.
Oh, yes.
Because they're like, I don't want my son to get mistaken for some hoodlum or something walking in our community.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they've made it, but there's a risk out there. And people don't realize just because you make money, you live in this nice subdivision, and your son walking around here with a hoodie on and something goes down, your son could get jacked.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're doing is they're calling and say, hey, can I get some insurance on my, you need to do that, because young black men are at a higher risk of something happening to them, So I just wanted to put that out there for parents. If you got teenage sons and daughters really, but sons specifically, make sure they're insured, because the risk of them being out at the wrong place at the wrong time can be detrimental to them and to the family income as well.
Wow.
Tanya, I know that you were.
Yeah, that was a very good point, Michael. That's very true. But I just wanted to make the point of not despising small beginnings. I think a lot of times we think in order to have some of these things, to have a college savings plan or life insurance or retirement or whatever, that we have to contribute, big sums of money, all the time to make these things happen. And the truth is, compounding works on big amounts, compounding works on small amounts, but you don't get any compounding if you don't put any amount in, so even if you can't do, $500 a month, maybe you can do 10, that's a place to start to get these things rolling. And then I think once you get yourself into the habit of even just doing that, it's a good thing. And then that's probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is just getting in the habit of doing that. But consistency is like the key to all success in whatever it is, whether it's financial, health, if you're trying to learn something, just being consistent with it is where, you get those dividends and where things, pay off. And so this is true when we're talking about, financial matters as well. You might not be able to do a big amount, like we talk about the affluent people, and, you hear folks, oh, that's for rich folks, or they'll use other terms as well. But no, that's for all folks. We just have to put in the effort, even if it's if all you can do is a little bit, do that little bit and allow that to grow, as time goes on. And as you're able, as time moves on, we expect that our incomes will increase. And as your income increases, instead of buying a bigger thing, put more in toward these future endeavors.
When my dad and we were doing one of our podcasts, the quote that we would always say at the end of it was this quote by Arthur Ashe, would say, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." And that kind of echoes that point with time. It's like, it doesn't matter if you have, $50,000, $100,000, $1,000, right? If it's just $50, if it's just $25, start where you are and start making that discipline, that consistency there. And as you get more, right? God says, "You are faithful with little, I will bless you with much." Like that idea of like, you start with the little things. If I can't trust you with the 25, what you gonna do with the 1,000 when I give it to you, right? And so just making sure that you are being consistent and setting up those good habits at that early age, or just wherever you find yourself, just starting there and not feeling like you have to wait until you get to a certain level. I think that's definitely important. And Ray, to kind of touch back on one of the things that you said, about just getting, you're trying to get through school debt free, but also just thinking about like school is such a large financial decision, right? And for me in particular, I went to law school, and I talk with people now about the idea of going to law school, because it can be, and this could be law school, it could be medical school, some graduate education that's going to potentially cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in particular. Is do not rush this decision, right? I know a lot of people that I've seen, I've talked to them, they're very like type A, they've got a plan, they're going to graduate from undergrad and go straight to law school. And maybe they didn't get the LSAT score that they wanted to, but that just means they're going to reshift and now do this. And I'm like, slow down. Like, it's not going anywhere, right? Delaying 1 year to retake the LSAT, to get a higher score so you can get more scholarship money can change the trajectory of your career, right? Just in how much debt you may not have to take on, B, the type of school you could get into, and those, yield the different types of career outcomes and opportunities available to you. And so I've talked with some people and just like, hey, it's not going anywhere. Now, sometimes you can get through to them. Sometimes they got their plan, they got their little road. I'm following this. But that's one thing that I do. If I hear someone's going to school and they are willing to listen, I will impart that. And I sort of have like this little email that I've been sending to people for, every time they ask me, I'm like, I got some resources. This is what, study resources. These are programs that you can apply to get help with preparing for the LSAT, preparing your applications, resources that, I took part in, new ones that I've learned about. And, I've been able to help some one of the members of my church here. She had reached out to me and she's like, yeah, I heard that you're in law, you went to law school. I'm thinking about it. Got her into a pipeline program at UT where I went to law school. She went to the pipeline program, got into UT, got a scholarship to do all of these things. And she wasn't, and she was like, her dad, every time he sees me, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful for you, like for taking the time to talk to her. And,
Hey, Michael, is that your African accent, man? You've got this African accent going. What you try to do?
It's not good. It's not good. It's not a good accent. Let's just say that. It's not authentic at all.
Sound pretty good.
Yeah. Well, then you know it. You don't have a good sense of what an African accent sounds like as well. But the point is like, we're all going to encounter different people in our lives, right? And, sometimes taking the time to talk to someone for 30 minutes, right? And I'm not just talking to people on the panel, I'm talking to people who are listening. That as you recognize things in your own lives and you engage with people, find out, or young people, figuring out what they're going through and imparting that wisdom on them. That sometimes they think they know better. Sometimes, they may have a good plan. Sometimes it's just, I'm checking in. just making sure you're good, making sure that you know that you can come to me if you have a question about something, and being willing to do that, to help set up that next generation to not make foolish mistakes or to not think that it has to be done this way or I've got to do it at this time. It's like, slow down. There's a lot of life ahead of you. There's a lot of life. And so, and someone did that for me because I was trying to rush into law school. He's like, slow down. I hear your plan. I commend you. However, based on my experience, I think this is something that you should take some time to get to this point and do it this way. And I mean, that has, served me so well and paid dividends, and I can only try to pay it forward at this point. So yeah, definitely echo those sentiments, right?
That mentorship, the mentorship is invaluable. Ray and his wife mentor our granddaughter Alexis, and every time I think about it, I am so grateful that she had them in her life, because it's like when she bounced it off of us, if it's not something that, we can advise her about, then we'll say, well, go talk to Ray. And it has just been such a wonderful collaboration to see her grow, but to know, that she has these goals, but yet and still, she needs to really step back and think about, how am I going to do this? And it's invaluable. So when you
Hey,
have,
Pat,
young people that can encourage Michael, I think I've sent my grandson to talk to you when, he was finishing up his bachelor's and he's looking at law school. And so I'm like, okay, I know somebody, I can just, send you over there. And then he has, cousins that are attorneys. And so those kinds of things make a big difference in young people's lives. It really does.
Pat, you had mentioned your granddaughter. Our audience probably don't know her. Go ahead and tell them about her accomplishment, because she's currently in working. She has her master's. She's going to be pre-med.
Ray, she's finishing up that master's thanks to you and your wife, and the encouragement that she, and the support that she has, and she'll be finished with her master's next month. And she's looking at going to medical school, and he's working with her on that. But another thing though that really helped her was that her mother saw the value of giving her some extra and invested in a program that Oakwood Academy offered for young people to either have certification for pharmacy tech or a certification for CNA. And, she's a small frame person. Her personality would not fit CNA at all. But she went into the pharmacy tech track, and she was blessed enough to get a position with CVS while she was still in school. And then when she finished at Oakwood, she took a year to, take her time and get into a graduate school. She chose Belmont, and Belmont is another Christian school in Nashville. So when she got to Belmont, the people that she was working for at CVS helped her transfer to the CVS in Nashville. But when she got there, they were not doing what they promised her they would do, and that was working with her class schedule. And, now you're in a big city, you need to be able to get from work to class. And they were like cutting her short and having her work almost an hour before class started. And so, she spoke to them several times, and they were like, oh, this and that and the other. And so she just said, I'm going to get on the website and see what I can find. And she went to Vanderbilt Hospital as a pharmacy tech. And they grabbed her up, and she's been blessed to be able to work there. And they have worked with her schedule. And, so she's thriving in Nashville. And, I get nervous sometimes just thinking about this big city and this, young lady, but she's doing good. And I praise the Lord for that.
That's good.
Ray, what you got to say?
Well, so we it's been a journey, and a lot of what Michael said is conversations that we've had. I think you can kind of find a common thread in Mr. Vance, he said why we make bad decisions, right? But I think there's a general why we make bad decisions. A lot of times we make those bad decisions, it's because of how we want other people to see us, right? And so it's like, why wouldn't you take a year if it's the best thing for you? Well, I already told all these people I'm doing this, and people don't think this and that, and it's like, yeah, but that's, with all due respect, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That is not, in 10 years, it's going to matter less what people think versus where your finances are. So I think that's a hard one to come off of, because we had that conversation. I was like, I guess when you're younger, you don't really see it. I mean, I'm just 37, so it's not like I'm not super, super up there, but like I'm 30, I'm close to 49 to 20, right? And I think as time goes on, you start recognizing like the rush that I had. It's like you're rushing, you get there, you gotta wait anyway. So like, what were you rushing for?
Life
You
is
just
still
slow down. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's still gonna be there. So I think that sentiment right there that Michael shared was so powerful. It's still gonna be there.
Yes.
You don't have to rush like that. Set yourself up for success, in the long term. Don't just rush. And a lot of times if you just slow down, whatever decision you're making, if you just slow down and get off the high of that, oh yeah, that's so much fun, or that's so good, you realize I don't even need that. I don't even need that. So I guess it's boiled down to having the discipline to do what's best for you, and to slow down to do what's best for you.
And sometimes they set their goals so high and until they put pressure on themselves. That's what young people do these days. And it's like, well, why are you pushing yourself like that? Sit back, wait, take a breath, and think this thing through. And so, that is one of the things that we see in our young adults these days, is that, they want to be right there where their classmates are, or where somebody else is, or thinking that, the parent or grandparent have these expectations of them. And it's like, wait a minute. No. I don't want you to feel that pressure. I want you to, step back and think about it before you make that final decision. And having somebody else to bounce off of is so, so helpful.
But I just want to piggyback on what you were saying, Pat, and that it's a blessing that we have young mentors who can help guide our youth, because for many of us, and part of it comes back to what you were saying, Pat, that because so many of us were denied opportunities, even though we were older, we couldn't really share a lot of information because we're still trying to figure some things out ourselves.
Right.
I know for me, I was the first person in my family to go to college.
Yeah.
Whereas my children and grandchildren have now gone to college, so they've got more people around them.
Right.
Nobody in my neighborhood was going to college. Nobody in my family was even, trying to go to college, because they were trying to get a job at the factory, because the factory was making money and they wanted to have money. And so, sometimes sometimes part of your problem can be lack of resources, lack of mentors, or lack of people.
Right.
And so you feel like you've got to make all these decisions by yourself, because that's basically what you've been doing most of your life, is making decisions by yourself, because you were the only one trying to achieve that particular goal. So it's nice, to hear you all reaching back and helping those underneath you and helping them to make wise decisions, and for them to feel like it's worthwhile talking to you. Because I mean, that doesn't happen with everybody. Because I know that, there are some people you talk to, is going to go over their head. They can't relate to you. But I applaud you for doing what you're doing, because like Pat said, it is very much needed. They need to hear somebody other than their parents. I think Marion Wright Elderman was talking about that,
Right.
how, a lot of times our children do not listen to us. They listen to somebody else. And I remember my dad saying the same thing. he was saying, you know what, we say something, he said, I've been trying to tell you that all your life. But why is it that when such and such says it, now it makes sense? I don't know, but it does, Anyway, that's just life.
All right. Did we have 30 more minutes? I know are we trying to wrap up here? I'm trying to figure out what my time is looking like.
Right. We can
Help
go
me out.
ahead and
'Cause it's
start
been an
wrapping
hour.
it up. We got another 15, 20 minutes
Okay.
wrap it up for next week, because we will have another session next week at 3:00. And so we'll
Okay.
be building on what we talked about today. So you can kind of get some closing remarks from everyone. And if you got some more questions you wanted to ask, we got another 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Now I'll give a chance for everyone to kind of give some of their final thoughts, and then I'll wrap up from there. So we'll go reverse style this way. That puts Ray on the spot to start off with his final closing thoughts.
Yeah. As I was just thinking about everything that was said, and LaTanya, you said something a couple times, and there's this stigma, that we have about this world, right? Like, I guess to Mr. Dell's point, like, people have been denied from it for so long that it almost feels like it's a world we don't belong in. And it is. It's a world for us. But there's this barrier that's sometimes put up with the terminology. It's unfamiliar, and it might give you a headache, but it's not as difficult as it seems. It's a lot of very simple concepts hidden behind some big words. And if you can just find someone who's good in your community, even just getting on a podcast like this or tuning in on things like this to get a simplified version of what's really going on, you realize it's really not that difficult to make a big change in your life. And I hope that fear and this is massive thing, there's so much I don't know about it, that doesn't keep people away from just giving it a shot, getting to know a little bit more about your finance, getting to know a little bit more of how things actually work for you and your family. And that's my prayer, that the intimidation factor will start to fall away and you realize it's not as bad as it seems, and it's not for them, it's for everyone. It's for us.
That's great. LaTanya?
Yeah, no, I love that. What's the saying? Every journey starts with one step. Another one we hear is we can only eat an elephant one bite at a
One by
time.
the time.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah, those little changes, those small, efforts, they all add up if we're consistent. And, like Ray said before, we can do anything we want to. We just have to be consistent in doing it. But you have to determine, first of all, that you want to get there. And then you can begin that journey, whatever that is, with that first step, however small it is.
All right. Thank you. Then Mrs. Hughes.
Just moving forward one step at a time and keeping each other encouraged and lifting people up as you grow, lifting them up and encouraging them to be successful as well.
All right. Thank you. Mom?
I've often heard that when you mentioned that you can do this, like Ray was saying, oftentimes we think it's not for us, it's for them.
Mhm.
And, and they've got this and they've got that. Well, one of the things that I was, glad to hear you say, Ray, is not only is it not just for them, it's for all of us, but there are ways of achieving success, but you have to look for it. You have to spend the time. You have to, it's not going to just be handed to you. And I think that sometimes we feel like if it's not easy, if it's not given to me, if I can't see it right then and there, then it's not attainable. But it's still out there, so yes, you can do it. Look for it, work for it, try it out, and take those little baby steps, and you can do it.
Yes.
Dad?
Yeah, again, I'm just overwhelmed. This has really been rich for me, being on this line with you all, sharing your own personal stories. And I'm thinking of this story I heard about an acrobat that was walking across Niagara Falls on a tightrope, and a crowd of people gathered around and was observing as he walked across Niagara Falls. They were amazed. He went across, came back, and then he did it a second time, pushing a wheelbarrow across the Niagara Falls, and came back. And then he asked somebody, it was a reporter in the audience, he said, "Would you like to get in the wheelbarrow while I go across and come back?" And the reporter says, "No, I'm not going to do that." He says, "Why? You just see me go over and come back." He says, "Well, I believe you could do it. I just don't trust you." And sometimes we believe God can do stuff for our lives, but sometimes we don't trust him. And I'm here on this line telling somebody today that whatever you're going through, you're going to have to not only just believe in God, you're going to have to trust him to get you through it. And everybody on this line here today has told you that. And I'm telling you again, that if you will put your hands and your trust in God, he will see you through it. I am a personal witness of this. And I think everybody on this link can tell you story after story
Yes.
how God has helped us
Yes.
go through. And we couldn't see a way. We couldn't see it. We believed in God, but we couldn't see it. And we didn't trust like we should have. But God brought us through. And so next week, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about some of that experience that we had, some of those things that you can see are miracles that happened to us. I was talking to my wife the other day, this weekend. She was like, "This is a miracle." She said to me, "This is a miracle." I said, "Honey, it ain't that deep." She said, No, this is a miracle." And so we see miracles all the time in our lives, and we don't recognize it.
Yes.
But I just want to encourage someone here today to keep the faith, keep trusting in God. He'll see you through.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing all of your insight and wisdom. We hope for those who have been listening that this has encouraged you, strengthened you as you continue on your journey or start a journey, and that this sparks something. If it requires you to do a little bit more research to figure something out, or to keep trying and working on something because you're saying, I haven't quite got it yet, but this has encouraged you that you can continue, that you will continue to work until you get to, you see that success, you realize that success, or you cross that bridge, or you're able to overcome whatever that issue is. Again, if it's Amazon, that's your thing. If you look at all the cars and you're wondering like, which one am I going to get? And this makes you rethink whether I should buy that new car, if I should buy something that makes sense for me, right? Instead of trying to appear to others that I've made it, right? Just being honest about where you are in your situation and making the right financial decisions for you. Because in 10 years, 20 years, you're going to, still, you reap what you sow, right? And if you sow bad financial decisions, you're going to reap, negative consequences of that. And so if you sow good decisions, if you make smart decisions, start investing, start making good habits now, you'll reap the positive benefits of that down the line. And so that's hopefully what we've encouraged you to do, to think about a little bit deeper, to challenge maybe some of your own assumptions about why you might be doing things, or what you should be doing. Hopefully that this has encouraged you to take a deeper look into that. And I'm appreciative to have been here on this panel. It's encouraged to see just the different experiences of those of us who are on here, and to have this opportunity to do this. And so, Dad, I thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to connect with all of you. And thank you all for joining us on the panel, and those who have watched. We encourage you to come back next week at the same time, 3:00 next week. We have another live panel discussion. And these will also be available online for you to re-listen to and revisit. If there was something that you heard, you want to go back and hear that again. All righty.
Right.
Bye, everyone.